Mira Dace reached the railroad after the last work van left without her. It did not happen all at once. That was the cruelest part. A crew boss at the melon sheds had told the day hands to wait by the water tank while he drove into Westray for the pay envelopes. The sun had dropped. The women who knew better had drifted away by pairs. Men with bent straw hats had gone silent, and then gone entirely. By the time the flies gave up on the split melon rinds and the first low thunder moved behind the western wheat, only Mira was still standing near the tank, with dust on her shins and a paper voucher in her hand that no store in town would honor. She had learned not to pound on locked office doors after dark. She had learned not to call a lie when the liar still owned the nearest truck. She folded the voucher small, slid it into the lining of her coat, and walked toward the only line in the country that promised direction. The rails lay half a mile beyond the sheds, 2 black seams across the open plain. Between the fields and the tracks stood an old grain elevator, tall enough to seem important even after abandonment had stripped it of every sign worth stealing. Its metal siding had weathered from cream to the color of bone. A row of loading spouts hung over a cracked concrete pad. Beside it crouched a weighhouse with 2 blank windows, and beyond that, the main line carried trains that did not slow for towns as small as Kettlebank. The evening was too warm for the color of the sky. The air had the greasy heaviness that came before violent weather, a pressure against the inside of the ears. Green wheat moved in wide, nervous shivers. Distant power lines gave a dry whine. Somewhere out of sight, a meadowlark sang 3 bright notes, and then stopped as if it had been corrected. Mira left the road when she saw a county truck stopped at the crossbuck. Its driver was leaning out, speaking to someone she could not see. Nothing about the truck was moving toward her, but she had survived by believing trouble could change direction quickly. She cut through the weeds behind the old elevator, keeping her head below the level of the loading platform. That was when she saw the boy. He was crouched beside the weighhouse, where the concrete scale deck had sunk 2 inches below its frame. He could not have been more than 13, thin in the narrow-shouldered way of children who had grown faster than their meals. His skin was dark brown, his hair cropped close, and his shirt sleeves had been cut off unevenly, as though done with a pocket knife. He had one hand pressed to the side of a rusted steel cabinet, and the other lifted slightly, not quite warning her, not quite asking her to stay back. Mira froze with one foot in foxtail grass. The boy turned his head toward the rails. The sound came a second later, a faint, clean ringing through the metal, then a deeper force under it, far away but already arriving. "Hide before the train passes," the black boy whispered. His voice was not loud enough to travel 10 feet, but the urgency in it crossed the distance cleanly. He did not point at the track. He pointed down to a trough of shadow between the weighhouse and a fallen grain chute. Mira did not ask why. She had asked why enough times in her life to know that the answer often came too late. She dropped to her knees and slid into the narrow space as gravel cut through the fabric of her pants. The boy folded himself beside the steel cabinet, pulling his elbows in tight. He did not look frightened of being seen. He looked frightened of being taken by air. The train arrived with a horn blast that flattened every thought. It was not the kind of slow freight a hungry person could study. It came fast and long, containers stacked too high, steel wheels hammering at the joints. The whole plane suddenly turned into noise. Wind punched around the elevator and slapped the loose siding until it banged like great pans. Dust lifted from the loading pad in a hard sheet. Dry grain husks, trapped for years under boards and in bolt holes, flew out in stinging swarms. Mira pressed her face against her sleeve. The space beside the weighhouse sucked and shoved with each car. Something above her tore loose and rang across the concrete. A tin panel sailed through the place where she had been standing and struck the ground edge first, burying itself halfway into the old mud as neatly as a hatchet. The boy did not move until the final car was gone, and the red light at the end had shrunk down the tracks like a coal. Even then, he waded through the afterwind, counting silently with his mouth. On 12, he reached out and caught the handle of the steel cabinet just as it sprang open with a clang. Inside the cabinet, something heavy shifted. Mira crawled backward. Her shoulder struck the sunk edge of the scale deck. The old steel plate groaned beneath her weight, not downward, but sideways, as if the ground had learned to slide. A wedge of concrete at the base of the weighhouse lifted. A black seam appeared where there had been only dirt and dry grass. The boy saw it. His eyes widened. "Don't pull!" Mira's hand, searching for balance, closed around an iron lever hidden inside the crack. Her palm slipped on dust. The lever dropped with a solid, expensive sound. The ground opened. Not like a collapse, like a door that had been waiting. A rectangle of the scale deck rose at one end, while the other end sank, balanced on a buried pivot. Warm air breathed up from below, carrying the smell of limestone dust, old burlap, and rainwater kept in darkness. A narrow stairwell appeared under the weighhouse, its concrete steps dropping into a yellow gloom made by no lamp Mira could see. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The stormlight turned their faces the same gray-green shade as the wheat. The boy stood slowly. "You opened it," he said. Mira looked at the lever, then at the tin panel still quivering in the mud. It opened because it wanted to. That's not how old things work. It is when they've been waiting on somebody foolish enough. He did not smile. He came close to the edge and lay flat, looking down without putting weight on the raised plate. "I've been trying all week." "Then you're welcome." His eyes cut to her, sharp and offended, but the look did not last. A low rumble rolled across the sky, closer than before. The boy reached into the open cabinet and removed a strip of painted wood attached to a thin chain. He pulled it until a little brass pointer in the cabinet trembled, then let it go. It snapped back, but not all the way. "That's bad," he said. Mira had no patience left for mysteries that came with weather. "What's bad?" "It doesn't have a full breath." The phrase was too strange to answer. Mira stood, brushing dirt from her knees, and looked over the elevator yard. Beyond the tracks, the county truck had moved on. The road was empty. The wheat beyond it was flattening in long streaks under wind that had not yet reached them. The old elevator creaked, as if somebody enormous had leaned against it. The boy reached into the stairwell. His hand found a hook on the inside wall, and when he pulled, a protected lamp came alive behind thick amber glass. Not electric, not flame either. It was a captured glow from somewhere deeper, reflected along a metal tube. The steps appeared one by one, damp in their centers, clean along the edges from recent use by mice or air. "What is this place?" Mira asked. He shook his head. "My aunt called it the below scale. She said if the sky turned black and the church cellar was locked, you came to the elevator and waited for the train to fill the lungs. I thought she was telling it bigger than it was. She did that." "Your aunt know you're here?" "My aunt's been dead since February." He said it flatly, the way people say things that have already spent all their pain and become fact. Then he stepped onto the first stair. Mira did not follow at once. She had spent years avoiding holes offered by strangers. Cellars, boxcars, sheds, rooms with one door, and somebody between her and it. But the wind moved again over the open yard, and this time, it carried a smell from the west, like crushed leaves and tin. The sky beyond the grain elevator had developed a low, turning shelf. The boy looked back. "You can stand up here and wait for another train to throw metal at you, or you can come down. What's your name?" "Darius Cole." "Mira." "Last name?" "Not needed for stairs." Darius considered that. then nodded once, accepting the rule. Mira descended. The stairwell turned sharply after 8 steps, not deeper, but inward, under the way house, and then under the old loading pad. The air changed from hot to cool. The walls were poured concrete, not mined stone or brick, and the ceiling was too low for comfort, but too well made for accident. At the bottom stood a round steel door, already ajar, with a wheel in its center and black letters painted above it in careful block script. Scale storm room. Keep the weight. True keep the nose to weather do not lock against hands. The letters had been repainted more than once. The newest paint was still decades old, but somebody had cared after the first somebody. Darius touched the wheel with 2 fingers, reverent and worried. It was real. Mira listened. Under the building's creak and the far thunder, there was a soft inward pulse, a slow leather sound. She had heard living rooms breathe in winter when the stove drew poorly, had heard buses sigh on their brakes, had heard sleeping cattle in a dark barn. This was none of those. It was mechanical, but not dead. Darius pushed the door open. The room beyond was larger than the elevator above promised. It ran in a long oval under the rail yard, with concrete benches built into the walls and shelves cut deep into the poured sides. The ceiling curved, ribbed with steel. Round vents sat high at both ends, each covered by bronze mesh. A hand pump stood over a covered cistern. Folded canvas stretchers hung from hooks. There were clay jars sealed with wax, stacks of enamel cups nested in tin, a rack of clean rags stiff with age, and 3 lanterns in cradles that caught the same amber light from metal tubes overhead. At the far end, behind slatted boards, 2 enormous leather bellows rose and fell slightly, as if dreaming. Mira stepped fully inside. The air smelled old, but not rotten. Dry seed, oiled metal, water from stone. She had entered abandoned places before. They held themselves like clenched fists. This place held itself like a hand left open under a table. Darius moved quickly to a board mounted near the bellows. He studied it, lips moving as he read. Mira came beside him. The board was not a diary and not a memorial. It was instructions, most of them practical enough to be frightening. When fast train passes eastbound, set nose gate half. When fast train passes westbound, set nose gate full. If leather pulls flat, close storm door. If red bead rises, open roof cowl. If green bead falls, work the hand lung. No lamp flame in dust air. No one turned away while bench space remains. Beside the board was a glass tube with 2 beads inside it. The red bead sat low. The green bead sat lower than a painted mark. "That's what I mean," Darius said. Low breath. "What fills it?" "The train. Train wind. Passing cars push air through those scoops outside. Not the same as regular wind. It comes hard and clean if the gate is pointed right." Mira looked at the bellows. Somebody built a cellar that breathes on freight. They built it because regular cellars had locks. He said it without drama, but it found a place in Mira's stomach. She thought of church basements, school basements, courthouse basements, all doors that could be opened from one side by people with keys. She thought of a boy his size hearing old family stories and coming alone to an empty elevator before a storm. Thunder cracked, near enough to make the enamel cups tremble. A fine sift of dust dropped from the ceiling seam. Darius went to the door and tried to turn the wheel. It moved halfway and stopped. "Help me." Mira took the other side. The metal was cold, resistant. Together they pushed. The wheel gave a quarter turn, then jammed with a dull knock from inside the wall. The door remained open by the width of a hand. Darius went pale. "That can't stay like that." "It's almost shut." Almost shut is open when pressure comes. Mira disliked the way he spoke with certainty. It meant somebody had taught him the shape of consequences. What happens? He pointed to a narrow slot beside the door. A strip of linen hung there, barely stirring. Next train pulls from the room instead of feeding it. If the storm hits after, we'll have stale air and dust. If the big gust hits while the plate is open, it can rip the scale door up. Mira looked back toward the stairs. The raised deck above them already seemed less like a miracle and more like a mistake she had made. Then we fixed the wheel. Darius stared at her. "What?" she said. "You said it like you know how." "I know how to start with what's stuck." The corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile. "That's more than most." They found the tools in a wall chest behind a canvas flap. The chest was not full of treasure. It held things made for hands that expected trouble. Oil tins wrapped in wax cloth, wooden mallets, a coil of tarred cord, brass picks, a short-handled shovel, a jar of beeswax, leather patches cut in ovals, a set of open wrenches arranged by size on painted hooks, and a small mirror fixed to a handle. Mira took the mirror and looked behind the door wheel. "There's a latch bar in the wall. Something's in the track." Darius lifted one of the lanterns. "Can you see it?" "Not enough. Don't put your fingers where a door wants to close." I wasn't planning to offer it any. He found that funny despite himself. It came out as one breath and disappeared. The track was packed with a gray mass of old grain dust, hardened by moisture into something like poor cement. Mira worked the brass pick into it, while Darius held the light. The first bit crumbled. The second came loose in a chunk. Inside it were roots, thin and pale, from weeds that had found the old seam above and tried to grow downward into darkness. "Hungry things find openings," Mira said. Darius looked at her, trying to decide whether she meant roots or people. "My aunt said this door used to open if you stood on the scale and pulled the weigh lever at the same time. You tried that?" "I weigh 84 pounds with wet shoes. The scale didn't care." Mira scraped deeper. Maybe it was waiting for somebody heavier. Maybe it was waiting for somebody unlucky. That too. The latch track cleared by half an inch. They pushed the wheel again. It moved farther, then stopped with another knock. From above came a groan, low and stretched, the sound of the old elevator flexing under new wind. The amber tubes flickered, not from electricity, but from some external light being interrupted. Darius ran to the glass beads. The red bead had climbed to the first mark. "Roof cowl's catching weather," he said. "Is that good?" "It means the storm is close, and the cowl is still pointed wrong." Mira was already beginning to understand the place. It was not a shelter, as most people meant it. A hole where fear waited itself out. It was a machine that had to be answered. Every safety in it depended on another safety being set before the next force arrived. Darius found a painted diagram inside a shallow drawer. It showed the elevator from above, not as a building, but as a pattern of hidden veins. A line ran from the trackside scoop to the bellows. Another ran upward, through the elevator leg to a roof cowl. A third ran out toward the old road crossing, ending in a square marked storm board. The drawing had no names of owners, no company stamp, only directions. Mira traced the stuck door line. There's another latch release in the scale pit. Above. Yes, where the wind is throwing knives. The train threw the knife. The wind's only picking up dust now. Darius gave her a look that said he was young, not stupid. The sky's turning. They went up anyway. The first thing that struck Mira outside was the color. The plane had gone dark at the horizon, but bright overhead. A yellow-white glare that made the elevator's shadow hard and black. The clouds to the west were stacked in layers, the lowest one smooth as the underside of a bowl. Beneath it, rain fell in a gray wall that did not touch the ground straight. It leaned. The scale deck remained open, a dark mouth at their feet. Darius stepped around it to the steel cabinet. If the release is in here, it'll be behind the old weights. The cabinet had held more than the strip of wood. Behind a rusted panel, iron counterweights hung on pins, each stamped with numbers. Mira saw how the scale had once worked. Wagons rolling on, grain weighed, levers balancing load against metal truth. Someone had stolen the brass, but left the iron, probably because it was too heavy to take quietly. Darius reached toward the smallest weight. Mira caught his wrist. Use the hook. He frowned, then saw what she meant. A line of ants moved through the back of the cabinet, but behind them lay something worse, a bent spring under tension, held by a sliver of rust. Darius picked up a steel hook from the cabinet floor and pulled the smallest weight from its pin. The spring snapped the instant the weight cleared. The hook jumped in his hand. If his fingers had been there, he would have lost skin. He swallowed. Thank you. Don't spend it. We're not finished. Behind the weight rack was a flat handle painted red under the dust. Darius pulled. Nothing happened. He braced both feet and pulled again. The handle moved 1 inch and stopped. Mira put both hands over his, and together, they dragged it down. Below them, the storm room door boomed shut. The force of it traveled through the concrete into Mira's knees. Darius shut his eyes in relief, then opened them at once. The scale deck remained raised. That should have dropped too, he said. A horn called from the east, not distant enough. Mira turned. Another train was coming, this one from the opposite direction, its headlight a small, hard star beyond the bend. She and Darius were standing beside an open scale pit, next to a building with loose metal skin, with a storm front behind them, and a pressure machine below them not yet properly set. "Hide," Darius said again, louder this time. They ran for the trough. The space seemed smaller now. Mira pulled Darius in first, then folded herself beside him. The headlight grew. The horn came again, and the old elevator answered it with rattling panels. "Cover your mouth," Darius said. Mira buried her face in the crook of her elbow. The train hit the yard with wind, like a wall. It was a grain train this time, covered hoppers, their curved sides moving past in pale, endless bodies. Air forced under the loading platform, slammed into the open scale deck, and made it shudder against its pivot. For one awful moment, Mira saw the raised slab lift another inch. Darius reached from the trough and grabbed a dangling chain that ran from the cabinet down into the pit. He wrapped it once around his wrist, teeth clenched. "What are you doing?" Mira shouted. But the train ate the words. He pulled. Something below them clacked rapidly, then caught. The scale deck dropped with a heavy boom. The wind changed at once. Instead of tearing across the pit, it drove along the hidden scoop. Beneath the concrete, the bellows took their first full breath. Mira felt it through the ground. A deep intake, a leather swell, then a push of air sent somewhere useful. The train passed. The last car flickered away. Darius let go of the chain. The skin around his wrist had burned red where the links had pulled. He tried to hide it by closing his fist. Mira took his hand anyway and turned it palm up. That was a foolish way to keep a door. It worked. Foolish things do sometimes. That doesn't make them wise. He looked as if he might argue, but thunder struck close enough to make both of them flinch. The first hailstone landed on the loading pad between them, white and sudden. A second hit the steel cabinet. Then came a scatter of them, clicking across concrete like thrown teeth. They went below. The storm room had changed. The green bead in the glass tube had risen above the painted mark. The bellows moved with purpose now, expanding and compressing in slow, muscular strokes. Air flowed from the vents, cool and steady, carrying the scent of rain through metal and mesh. Somewhere beyond the walls, A flap opened and closed with each breath. Darius stood before the board, his face bright with a kind of fear that had become hope. It filled. Mira flexed her fingers. They were shaking now that there was time for them to shake. Good, then we stay until it passes. No, he pointed to the red bead. It was still rising. Roof cowl. If it keeps rising, it means weather pressure is wrong. If it goes past the black line, the room pulls dust from the elevator bins. Mira looked at the black line. Above it, someone had painted one word: choke. The old room did not offer comfort without conditions. Darius opened another drawer under the instruction board. Inside were thin metal cards, each stamped with a problem and a route. He sorted with quick fingers until he found roof cowl wrong way. The card showed a ladder inside the elevator leg, a service hatch, and a wheel marked North Nose. At the bottom, in smaller letters, do not climb in lightning unless red bead passes third mark. The red bead touched the second mark as they watched. Mira said, "How fast does it move?" Darius did not answer. Rain hit the world above them all at once. It came like something dumped from a height. The sound filled the stairwell, the vents, the old grain chutes. Hail hammered for half a minute, then softened into a furious drumming. Water began to spill down the first 3 steps before disappearing into side drains. Mira took the metal card. "Where's the ladder?" Darius shook his head. "I can do it. You weigh 84 pounds with wet shoes." That was the problem with the scale, not ladders. I'm not joking. Neither am I. He grabbed a canvas sleeve from a hook and pulled it over his burned wrist. You don't know the building. You haven't opened the shelter before tonight. I know the stories. Stories don't hold ladders. He looked toward the bellows, toward the room that his dead aunt had made real by telling him impossible things until he believed them enough to come. His face tightened with the strain of not being treated like a child and not wanting to die, proving he wasn't one. Mira softened her voice. "We both go to the ladder. I climb if it looks rotten. You read the card." He considered. "You'll listen? If you say a step is bad, I won't make it prove you right." That satisfied him. They took a lantern, the short-handled shovel, the brass pick, and a wrench with a wooden grip, polished by long use. Darius also took a cloth bag from a shelf. When Mira raised an eyebrow, he opened it. Inside were small wedges of cedar, a waxed cord, and a flat coil of copper-colored mesh. "Mouse screen," he said. "Mouse screen saves people? If mice fill an airline, people stop being proud about what saves them." They left the storm room through a side door marked Leg Service. The passage beyond was narrow and vertical smelling, full of dust that had never known daylight. It ran under the loading pad and then upward through the hollow base of the elevator. Rain found the outer walls in bursts, making the whole structure tick and pop. The ladder inside the grain leg was steel, bolted to wood so old it had turned black. Mira tested the first rung with her foot. It held. The second held. The third bent slightly and then settled. Darius read from the metal card below her. At 12 rungs, don't use the left handrail. At 17, duck. At 21, there's a missing back brace. How old is that card? Old enough to tell the truth. At 12 rungs, the left-hand rail shifted under Mira's palm before she put weight on it. At 17, a bolt end stuck from the darkness, exactly where her temple would have been. At 21, the ladder bowed away from the wall until she hugged herself against it and breathed through her teeth. Halfway up, the elevator began to moan. Not the sharp banging of loose siding. This was deeper, a long belly sound from the bins. Mira stopped. "What was Grain doing in an abandoned elevator?" she asked. Darius looked upward through the ladder cage. People store what they don't want inspected. Treated seed? Maybe. Or screenings. Or old corn. Or nothing. And the building just likes scaring us. Buildings don't like. You said old things wait. That was different. No, it wasn't. Mira almost laughed, but then another moan came, and with it a trickle of something from a crack above. Small pellets struck the ladder and bounced past her face. They were not corn. They were soybean hulls, dry and papery, packed for years, and now shifting as the storm shook the bins. Darius called, "Don't breathe that deep." Mira pulled her collar over her mouth. The hatch to the roof cowl stood at the top of the ladder, not opening to the outside but to a cramped wooden chamber beneath the roof. Wind hammered above it. The cowl wheel was a round iron crank, connected by a rod to the weather scoop outside. Its pointer should have aligned with a painted N. Instead, it sat between S and W, the worst possible angle for the storm striking from the west. The wheel had been tied in place by a vine that had grown through a seam and died there. Mira cut the vine with the edge of the brass pick. The wheel did not move. Read. Darius held the card near the lantern. If wheel refuses, check Powell under throat. Clear mud dauber cells from teeth. Do not force past notch or shear pin will fail. Mira found the Powell by feel. It was a flat spring under the wheel, packed around with hard little clay tubes. Mud daubers had built in the protected corner for years, generation after generation, each cell small as a knuckle, each one now part of a blockage, strong enough to threaten the air of anyone below. She dug them out with the pick. Dust filled her eyes. The roof boomed overhead. Darius held the lantern high and steady, though his burned wrist must have hurt. When the Powell finally dropped, the wheel spun a quarter turn by itself, yanked by the storm outside. Mira grabbed it with both hands. It fought like something alive, but it was only air having leverage. "North," Darius said. "Bring the pointer to north nose, not the letter N. There are 2 marks." "Why 2? Regular wind and train wind." "Of course there are." She set the pointer to north nose. The rod above them shrieked. A gust punched the roof so hard that Darius stumbled against her. For a second, all their weight hung on the wheel. Then the cowl outside found the weather and steadied. The shriek dropped into a low, steady hum. Far below, something changed in the storm room. The bellows took a deeper breath. Darius grinned, despite rain dripping through the roof seam onto his forehead. "It hurt us. Don't make friends with machinery. I'll make friends with whatever keeps air moving." They descended faster than they should have, but the red bead was falling when they returned. It settled below the second mark, then the first. The green bead remained high. Mira had just begun to believe they might wait out the storm in the strange old room when a bell rang once behind the wall. Darius went still. It rang again. Not from the elevator above, and not from the train line. A small, clear bell inside a wooden box near the far bench. Under it, painted letters read, "Road Call." Darius lifted the box lid. A strip of paper tape lay inside, dry and yellow. Beside it, a lever pointed to 3 choices: crossing, school road, section yard. The bell rang a 3rd time. "What does that mean?" Mira asked. "Someone pulled the outside storm board." "You said this place was secret." "It was. Maybe the board isn't." He moved the lever to crossing. A tin speaking cup above the box clicked open. At first there was only wind. Then a voice arrived through the wall, thin and broken by rain. "Anyone in there? Hey, the old board dropped by itself. Is there anybody?" Darius looked at Mira. Mira leaned toward the cup. "Who is this?" A pause. Then suspiciously, "Who's asking from under my elevator?" "Who owns weather?" Mira said. The voice swore. Not violently. in surprise. "This is Luther Fenn. I watched the crossing. That storm board on the road just swung down and blocked the lane. I nearly drove into it," Darius whispered. "It worked." Mira covered the cup with her palm. "Do we trust Luther Fenn?" Darius's expression closed. "He told me last week the elevator was railroad property and boys with no business should get gone. That's not the same as leaving people in a storm." "It can be." The bell line clicked again. Luther's voice came back sharper. "You kids in there?" "I know somebody's in there. Open up before I call county." A heavy thud followed from above, then another. Luther was at the scale door. Mira spoke into the cup. "Don't force that hatch. It's holding pressure." "The hell it is." "Listen to me. The storm board came down because this room still works. If you open the hatch wrong during a train pass, you can strip the air system." Silence. Then Luther said, "That elevator's been empty 20 years. Darius, trembling with anger, leaned in before Mira could stop him. "Empty isn't the same as useless." The words went into the cup and came back changed by the pipe, smaller but harder. Luther recognized the voice. "Coal boy." Darius's jaw set. Mira took over. "Mr. Fenn, look west." "I am looking west." "Then stop hitting the hatch." No answer came. The thudding stopped. The storm room's bellows continued their slow work. Rainwater gurgled in drains under the floor. The red bead wavered, but did not rise. Then Luther said, "Quieter. There's a farm bus at the crossing. Field crew from the east plots. Driver says the ditch is already too deep to turn around. They got 12 people and 2 little ones." I dropped the board because I thought it was a road gate. Darius closed his eyes. Mira understood the shape of the next problem before any of them named it. A shelter was not a shelter if its door stayed closed to the first people who needed it. "How far are they?" she asked. 100 yards from the elevator road. Wind's too bad to keep them in the bus if glass goes." Darius was already at the instruction board, searching. No one turned away while bench space remains. Mira looked at the storm room. It had benches for maybe 30 if fear made them courteous. "Can they reach the scale hatch?" Luther hesitated. "They can if someone shows the way. Rain's sideways. You can't see the open pit from the road. The scale deck is down now." "Is it?" "It is if your hands stay off it." Darius found another metal card. External entry during weather. He read fast. "Set room wheel closed. Open top hatch only between gust pulses. Use yellow rail rope. Do not let line cross trackside scoop. Count all hands by weightboard." "By what?" He pointed to a narrow brass plate on the wall with sliding weights and numbers. Not names. Weight. The old scale had counted wagons once. Below ground, it had been turned toward people. Not to measure their worth. To know how much air, how much bench space, how much water draw. Mira took the yellow rope from its hook. "I'll guide them." Darius shook his head. "You don't know the route. I know rain. I know the hatch. Your wrist is hurt." He held it behind him. "Your eyes are full of mud dauber dust." They glared at each other while thunder rolled over the elevator roof like barrels. Luther's voice came through the cup. "Kids?" Mira looked at Darius. "Together to the hatch. You stay at the top. I run the rope." He looked ready to argue, then nodded, because the room had taught both of them that the right task mattered more than pride. They sealed the inner storm door and went up. The stairwell shook with the wind above. At the scale hatch, Darius set the release exactly as the card showed. One hand on the chain, one foot braced against the concrete wall. Mira tied the yellow rope around her waist and fed the other end through the hatch ring. The outside hit like thrown water and gravel. The world had narrowed to gray. The old elevator vanished above its first story. The road was a smear. Hail mixed with rain now. small, hard beads that bounced from Mira's shoulders and stung her scalp through her hair. She kept one hand on the rope and moved toward the crossing by memory of where she had seen the bus headlights. Lightning flashed, revealing the farm bus tilted in the road, its yellow side streaked with mud. People pressed against the windows. She shouted, but the wind stole it. Luther Fenn appeared from the rain, a wide man in a soaked cap, one hand gripping the arm of an elderly woman and the other dragging a boy no older than 5. His face changed when he saw Mira not as a trespasser, but as a line tied to a hole in the ground. "This way," he shouted. She nodded and put the rope into his hand. He did not argue. They came in a staggered chain. Field hands, a driver with blood on his cheek from broken side glass, a woman clutching a canvas bag over a baby's head, 2 children crying without sound because the wind was louder than fear. Mira led them by the rope to the scale hatch, where Darius knelt in the gap, counting each person down and slapping the wall twice after each safe descent, so the room below would know. When the last person reached the hatch, the sky made a sound Mira had never heard at ground level. Not thunder, not wind, a continuous tearing, as if the clouds had found fabric in the world and were pulling it apart. Luther looked west and lost color under his weathered skin. "Funnel," he said. Mira shoved him toward the hatch. "Down. You first. Down." He went because there are tones older than rank. Mira followed, the yellow rope snapping behind her. Darius released the hatch chain. The scale deck dropped and locked over them. The outer roar dimmed but did not disappear. It moved into the walls. The storm room was full of people and breath. The field hands sat on benches, dripping onto the concrete. The children had been placed near the warmest vent. Someone was praying under their breath. Someone else kept saying, "I had the radio on. It didn't say this. It didn't say this." Darius ran to the beads. The red bead jumped at each pressure change. The green bead remained high, then dipped slightly. Mira wiped rain from her face. "What now?" Darius checked the instruction board, but his hands shook too badly to sort cards. Luther came beside him, and to Mira's surprise, removed his cap. "Tell me what you need, Cole." Darius blinked. "Don't look at me like that. Tell me." The boy swallowed. He pointed to the bellows. "If pressure drops, someone works the hand lung. If the stormboard line snaps, someone must set the crossing signal from inside, or the next vehicle might drive into debris. If dust comes through the west vent, we close the bin throat. I don't know where that is yet." Mira did. She had seen the diagram. Side passage behind the slats. The green bead fell another fraction. A crack moved through the elevator above them, followed by a bitter puff from the west vent. "Bin throat," Darius whispered. He found the card with shaking fingers. "Bin throat dust. Close shoe below west hopper. Check spark screen. No striking steel." Mira took the wooden mallet and the brass pick. Darius took cedar wedges. Luther held the lantern at the mouth of the narrow passage behind the bellows, too broad to crawl far, but steady enough to make his light useful. Mira and Darius went in on their elbows, with the leather lungs moving beside them like patient animals. The west hopper shoe was a warped wooden gate at the bottom of a chute. Each pressure change coughed old grain dust through the gap. Above it, something dry began to slide. "Together," Darius said. They scraped packed holes from the lower track. Mira lifted a bent bracket with the brass pick. Darius drove a cedar wedge under the gate to raise it over the warped place. Dust filled their eyes and mouths. The chute hissed louder. "Now!" They shoved. The gate slammed shut just as the old screenings came down against it. The wood bowed, held, then settled. Back in the storm room, the green bead rose. The people on the benches did not understand the mechanism, but they understood. A falling sign reversed. A little girl with braids stared at Darius. "Did you make it breathe?" Darius wiped dust from his mouth. "No. I just listened to what it wanted." Mira thought he had earned the lie. Then the outer door began to scream. The linen strip by the stair snapped inward. The scale hatch above had lifted at one corner, not open enough to free anyone, only enough to steal air. Mira ran up with Darius and Luther behind her. Rain sprayed through the seam. The chain strained upward as if tied to the storm itself. "Lower cleat," Darius said. "The storm cleat, not the first." Mira wrapped the chain, but there was too much slack. Darius grabbed a hanging release. "Old scale weight. Pull when it drops." The weight fell inside the wall with a deep thunk. The chain slackened for 1 second. Mira hauled it down, and Luther drove a wooden peg through the links. The hatch slammed shut. The scream vanished. They reached the room as the tornado passed near. It did not sound like thunder. It sounded like the world being dragged over itself. The bellows stopped their easy motion and held swollen. The green bead trembled above the mark. The children went silent. Water ran in the drains. Every wall hummed. Mira put one palm against the concrete. Darius placed his beside hers. She thought of locked rooms, false promises, the unpaid voucher folded into her coat. This place wasn't gentle. It demanded timing, scraped hands, and attention. But it had opened. It had not asked who deserved the bench before making air. The great note moved east. The rain stayed hard, but the tearing center was gone. They waited because the board told them to wait. Wait after quiet. Wind lies first. When the road call bell rang, Luther answered. The section yard voice came through thin and shaken. The school road board had dropped before the cookhouse roof peeled, and 6 people had reached the potato cellar in time. Luther looked at Darius before he spoke. "The old room saved them." "The what?" the voice asked. "We'll explain after we stop being fools." When the hatch strip finally settled, they opened the scale deck a hand's width, then wider. The outside world had changed shape. The elevator still stood, but its upper skin had twisted around a loading spout. A cottonwood blocked the road. The farm bus sat with 2 broken windows. Wheat lay flattened in a bent path across the field. County trucks came. A section truck came. Questions came in layers. Who opened the cellar? How many were inside? Whether the elevator was safe? Who had given permission? At that last question, Darius stiffened. Luther answered before the boy had to. Permission didn't hold the door shut. A latch did. Then they opened it right. The section foreman was Pearlie Astor, rain dripping from her hard hat. She knelt at the hatch and looked down. "This connects to the road boards?" Darius nodded. "Crossing. School road. Section yard." The cowl was turned wrong. The bin throat leaked. The storm cleat works. How do you know those words? My aunt did. Rosalie Cole. Pearlie's face changed. Cole, there's an old claim box in the section office with that name on it. Before dusk, she brought it. Narrow wooden slats drilled at one end, painted with initials and repairs. RC appeared on several of them. East lung patch, pump leather greased. Road board reset. After July storm. Darius touched the letters as if they were warm. Mira understood then that the past here would not arrive as a diary. It arrived as task slats, route cards, cedar wedges, paint worn thin around handles, instructions left by people who expected no statue and still refused to let the next frightened body suffocate. Darius took a blank slat from the shelf. "Right enough?" he asked. Mira nodded. He wrote slowly. DC and MD opened scale storm room. Roof cowl turned. Bin throat closed. Farm bus brought in. May tornado passed east. Room held breath. He paused at MD. Mira felt the weight of being recorded not as a trespasser, not as someone to move along, but as a hand that had done part of the work. The days after did not become simple. County men spoke of liability. Railroad men spoke of property. A preservation woman spoke of cataloging, until Darius told her the route cards could not leave during storm season, and Pearlie backed him before he had to say it twice. Luther admitted he had planned to request the pit be filled. "Fill it," Mira told them, "and you bury the only reason your boards warned anyone." No one filled it. The elevator did not become pretty. It became marked. Yellow lines were painted from the road to the scale hatch. The roof cowl was cleaned. The west bin throat was braced. The bellows were patched until they flexed without cracking. Darius learned official words for what his aunt had called the lungs. But when he stood before the gauge, he still used the old ones. Nose to weather, hand lung, breath mark. Mira stayed first because the east board hinge needed repair. Then because the scoop seam whistled wrong during afternoon freight. Then because Pearlie offered day wages to someone who could draw the system without making it look dead. Temporary work suited her. The way Darius waited for her to come back from town with enamel paint and bread suited her less comfortably, but she came back. In August, they tested the full system under a hard blue sky. Luther stood at the crossing board. Pearlie waited at the section yard. Darius stood below at the road call box. Mira stood at the scale cabinet. "Set nose gate half!" Darius called through the pipe. Mira set it. A westbound freight came bright along the rails. Mira stepped behind the painted line before it passed, not to vanish, but because force deserved a clean path. The train wind struck the scoop. Under her boots, the leather lungs filled. One by one, the road boards dropped and returned. The room had borrowed a train's passing breath and turned it into warning. Darius wrote another slat. Full board test. Westbound freight filled lung. Old room still knows how. The first storm watch of the next spring found Mira alone on early check. The sky was low and greenish beyond the wheat. Darius was at school, Luther at the crossing, Pearlie 3 miles east. Mira tested the chain, the cowl pointer, the beads, the hand lung, the cups, the route cards. Everything answered. A small sound came from the hatch. A woman stood at the top with 2 children and a garbage bag tied around their belongings. Her face had the exhausted hardness of someone who had asked for help in the wrong rooms. One child carried a cracked plastic dinosaur. The other carried no shoes. "I saw the sign," the woman said. "Is it only for storms?" Far down the track, a horn sounded. Mira looked at the painted line on the loading pad. Behind the yellow line before the train passes. They moved because she spoke like someone who knew what would happen next. The train came from the east, long and silver under the low sky. Wind struck the scoop and filled the old lungs. The woman held both children tight, but the train did not take them. The shelter took the breath instead. When the last car passed, Mira lifted the scale hatch. The room below glowed with borrowed light. "Yes," she said, answering both questions at once. "It's for storms." Then she opened the secret shelter wide enough for them to descend.